All right, all right, all right. Welcome to my channel. My name is 12 Gauge. If you're new here, thank you for being here. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. Today, I want to talk about the IDAHO4. The rideshare driver has been identified. I'm going to share some information today that I looked into earlier. If you've heard this information already, take it with a grain of salt. Not trying to rehash anything that's already been talked about, but I've never seen these documents in full view. So here we go. The first document that I'm going to be showing are what was taken out of Brian Koberger's house, and I know that I've seen other creators talk about this, so I know this one's been talked about. But the affidavit that I'm going to read afterwards is long, and the whole affidavit. There's not anything redacted. There's not anything cut out of it. It talks from beginning to end. So let's go ahead and get on this. Okay, let me go ahead and put myself at the bottom. That way you have a full view of it. This is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania application for search warrant and authorization. Basically, the County of Monroe. And this is the search warrant, so to speak. It talks about the address, a single family residence with white siding, tan foundation, dark colored shutters. An attached garage is located on side B. A small shed with a door and windows is located at the rear of the property, along with all the curtilage of property. The name of the owner is Michael Koberger, Marianne Koberger, and Brian C. Koberger is there as well. The warrant application approved by the district attorney, and there's the district attorney's name. So let's go ahead, and this was issued on December 29th, 2022 at 4:35 p.m. So let's talk about this. I know this has been talked about before. This is a receipt inventory of seized property. So this is personally served. Name of the person was Brian C. Koberger. So this is the seized property receipt. So collected or seized. This is Brian C. Koberger, 119 Lambden Drive, Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, 18210. Obviously, this is his parents' residence. Like I said, I know you've probably seen this before and heard this before. I'm going to get to the good part. Just bear with me. Number one, this is one. That's all it says. It says, I can't read what that word says. It looks like it's a Defiant silver flashlight. 2, 4 medical style gloves. 3, white Arizona jean. Company large t-shirt. 4, Champion WSU Cougar large black sweatshirt. Number 5, pack of black and white size 13 Nike shoes. Number 6, a pair of black Under Armour socks. Number 7, Under Armour black large shorts. Number 8, Under Armour black, I don't know what that word is, but large. Um, Number 9 is 1 buccal swab. So that's the receipt that they had for his house, or his mom and dad's house. Okay, so we'll go from there. And I thought that was interesting, even though it's been talked about before a million times. But this next part is what I'm going to show you that was interesting to me once I was reading this. And even though you've seen different variations of this, I want you to take a look at what they were looking for. They're looking for the person, Brian C. Koberger, date of birth 11/21/94. Blood or other bodily fluids or materials and items with blood or other bodily fluids or materials on it. Knives, sheaths, other weapons or instrumentalities of injury or death, and sales receipts or documentation for purchases of acquisition of such items. And then it goes down more and more and more, and it kind of tells you what they were looking for. And I'm sure you've seen this before. If you haven't, email me and I'll send you the document. That tells who the trooper was, the two troopers. And then they go down here to this. And this is what I thought was interesting, okay? This is the interesting part that really stuck out to me. All right. And I'm gonna have Sergeant Friday come up here so that he can kind of talk about this with me as I'm going over it. It says Exhibit A, statement of Brett Payne. Like I said, you've probably seen the cut down version. Maybe you've seen this version. I don't know. But I've never seen it all the way through. This thing is 31 pages long. So this is more than 19 pages. Okay, so welcome.
Yo, who's the share rider? I think that's been discovered for a long time. The rideshare driver. I was hoping it was DoorDash driver, but go ahead.
I'm going to show you this.
Show it to me.
It said the below information is the below information provided by Corporal Brett Payne, who is a duly appointed, qualified, and acting peace officer within the county of Latah, state of Idaho. Said Corporal Payne is employed by Moscow Police Department in the official capacity of position of corporal, has been a trained and qualified peace officer for 4 years. Corporal Payne is being assisted by members of the Idaho State Police and agents of the FBI. So it goes on to talk about all the stuff that was in the PCA, because this is basically what it is. And you've heard this a million times. It talks about, the King Road residence. When he went into King Road residence, he saw Xana south of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body. Later identified as Carnota's laying on the floor. Carnota was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by the edged weapon. Also in the room was a male. And like I said, you've read this a million times. You've talked about it. We've gone over it. But the part that really stuck out to me was this next part. As you're reading through this, it talks about going into Kaylee and Maddie's room. Mm-hmm. And then it talks about numerous interviews were conducted by Moscow Police Department officers, ISPD officers, and FBI agents. 2 of the interviews included Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen. Mm-hmm. So it talks about what they were interviewed about, what they said. We all already know about all that. When they saw Ethan, when they saw Xana, what time they were home, back to the King Road residence. Funk also stated that Chapin did not live in the King Road residence, was a guest of Carnota. We know that. Gonsalves and Mogan were at the local bar. We know that.
What are we trying to get to? Where are you trying to take all of this and rehashing it?
I'm going to show you where it talks about the rideshare driver. I've never seen that in the PCA. There's been countless. I mean, I know a creator talked about it very early on. I understand this. Okay, I'm not naive to the fact. But he was getting the person's name wrong. And the person's name is in this PCA, which is correct. So all the speculation that people have said, well, it's this name or it's that name, it's in black, it's in white and black on here. Okay, so it's Mortensen and Funk both made statement during the interviews that indicated the occupants of King Road were home by 2 a.m. and asleep, at least in a room, by approximately 4 p.m. or 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So talked about the DoorDash, and here we go. She talked about Dylan talked about, what she heard, what she saw, how she came in and out of her room 4 times.
3.
She went into shock phase, frozen shock phase.
Frozen.
It's a-
Yeah.
So it keeps talking about that, and then we keep going. The combination of Mortensen's statement, the law enforcement reviews of forensic downloads of records. It talked about what happened between 4 and 4:25. That's how they got the time frame. This part right here, I've never seen this part, but this isn't the part that I want to talk about. It said during the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent
Yeah.
shoe print. I understand that they found one, but I know that I've heard in speculation so many times about how it was found, this and that and the other.
Or the second page. Yep. No, that's all. Yep. Go ahead. Nothing there that I haven't seen or read 100 times.
Okay. And,
So they,
talking about how they used,
let me just say that they used a protein stain that develops the presence of cellular material. This could have been urine track from off the bottom of a shoe from the dog.
right. It says a presumptive blood test and then amino black, a
Yep.
protein
Yep.
stain.
So it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with this crime. Just be aware that shoe print is there, but we don't know the results of these tests, and it could be something as simple as your dog urine. So he peed there, and someone stepped in it and tracked it, and then
Right.
they mopped it up and missed it. Right. So that shoe print can be something or absolutely nothing.
It said the detective shoe print showed a diamond shaped pattern. We all know that. Similar to the shape of a van type shoe just outside the door of Mortensen's bedroom, located on the second floor. This is consistent with Mortensen's statement regarding the suspect path of travel. As part of the investigation, they did a video canvas of the house. Basically, this is going through the neighborhoods, going through the businesses, and looking at the cameras. Okay, so we're continuing on, and it's talking about where the individual traveled, suspect vehicle number 1. It says a review of footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle, and it goes into the time frames. I've never seen it broken down to the time frame like it's being broken down here. And then it talks about suspect vehicle number 1 can be seen entering the area a 4th time at approximately 404, and we've talked about that multiple
Mhm.
times. And then how it exited Queen Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn, driving eastbound again down Queen Road. Then talked about departing the area. Okay, I'm trying to find what I'm trying to get at here. It says law enforcement officers provided video footage of suspect vehicle number 1 to forensic examiners with the FBI that regularly utilize surveillance video to identify the make, the model of an unknown vehicle that is observed by one or more cameras during the commission of the criminal offense. The forensic examiner has approximately 35 years of law enforcement experience with 12 years at the FBI. This is the guy that at first identified the 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. Upon further review, they indicated it could also be a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. As a result, the investigators have been reviewing information on persons in possession of a vehicle that is a 2011-2016 white Honda Elantra. So this is how they came upon finding that. Like I said, none of this is any breaking news up to this point for me because I already know this. I've read this before.
So why?
The
And
cam
right. I mean, all this. Where? How does? I'm confused. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then it talks about when they found the Honda Elantra. Then it goes into talking about the path that it took. And then it went describing Koberger's residence. It talked about the path that the Elantra went down. It talked about how they found. It said this license indicate the Koberger is a white male with a height of 6 feet and weighs 185 pounds. And it also, the photograph to Koberger showed that he has bushy eyebrows. Koberger's physical description is consistent with the description of male Mortensen saw inside King Road residence on November 13th. And then it keeps talking about the phone pings, and there it keeps going on. It tells you what Koberger was about. Talks about the cellular ping, the historical phone records. Talks about the 8458 phone number, and that they found out it was Koberger, the cast information. Talks about all that. Like I said in the very beginning, you may have already read all this, you may have already heard all this, and I've heard up to this point. But this is a long document. It talks way into detail about certain things that have been redacted in other affidavits that people have presented. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar, very familiar with all of it. So
Right.
that's
I
why
understand that you are.
I was knitting a sweater while you were talking, and
Okay.
I'm about done.
Okay, good. What kind of sweater?
A turtleneck. I feel like I should be strangling people for
Turtleneck?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, a summertime turtleneck.
Summertime
Yeah,
turtleneck.
it's
Okay.
sleeveless. Yeah,
Okay.
so I have a sleeveless turtleneck.
I'm getting there. Be patient. I guess patience is not your virtue.
Boo! All right, here we go. I'm go forward ahead.
And it also talks about right here how they were able to get into his phone. It says many electronic devices, particularly newer mobile devices and laptops, offer their users the ability to unlock the device through biometric features in lieu of a numeric or alphanumeric passcode or password. It said this biometric feature includes fingerprint scanners, facial recognition, and its recognition features. Some devices offer a combination of these biometric features, and the user of such devices can select which features they would like to utilize. So they're saying that if his phone was equipped with a fingerprint scanner, they could get into that by utilizing the things that they have to be able to get into that. Also, the facial recognition, the iris scanner, search. Also said that it lapsed more than 48 hours, had a lapse since the device was last unlocked when they got it from Pennsylvania. When the device has not been unlocked during a fingerprint for 8 hours and the passcode or password has not been entered in the last 6 days. Similarly, certain Android devices cannot be unlocked with trusted face if the device has remained inactive for 4 hours. It goes on to give you a little bit of insight on how if a certain device isn't unlocked or utilized, then these are some of the things that this individual's training and experience um, says that the possession of a device or had device among his or her belongings at the time the device is found is likely a user of the device. So they're basically saying that they found this phone on Koberger, so therefore, through all this analysis, they determined that it was his.
They determined it was whose.
That it was Koberger's device.
All right.
You were rushing me, so I probably passed what I wanted to show.
Dude, me rushing you. I said, I'm here. I'm being quiet. And I've been quiet the whole time.
You said you were knitting a sweater. That's right.
It's right. With no sleeves, turtleneck. I'll be here.
The part that I wanted to show is it discussed the rideshare driver as being Eric Grower. And I know a lot of the other creators have indicated that this individual name was Eric Gower. And they were, just butchering the hell out of that. And I wanted to show in these documents how these certain things can can be proven by the documents. Okay, so I'm not certain which one of these says it, but this one I found as well was a receipt of what they found in the Hyundai Elantra once they confiscated it. Have you seen this, Sarge?
Yeah, but go ahead, read that so people see it.
You've seen this? Okay. Okay, they took out of the Elantra swabs, Ziploc bag with pink zipper, 7/4 plastic baggie with a green zipper, 36 dime, 32 nickels, 8 pennies, gloves, receipt, car insurance card, car registration, hiking boots, comfort inn, room key holder, and stay information, tire irons, shovel, goggles, floor mats, reflective vest, used water bottles, a wrench, door panel seats and seat cushions, headrest, seatbelt, visor, fibers, brake pedals, gas pedals, phone charger, band-aid, wrappers, maps, documents, and a seatbelt boot.
Yeah.
Nothing further.
Uh-huh.
So, do you think this was the itemized receipt for what they collected in there before they tore the car down? Or do you think this was just a generalized, this is what we
I'd like to
have
see the
taken?
date on that, but that's generally what they pulled out of the vehicle. And it was done 12/30.
12/30, 2022. So
Right.
do you
Then
think that
they would have their people go through that car now and start looking for DNA. They may in fact pull up the carpets, pull the seats, because you're going to look for blood underneath the carpets. You're going to look for DNA in places that would be unreachable by the human hand.
okay, so this part right here where it says 36 dime, 32 nickels, 8 pennies, do you think that they just lucked out with getting that descriptive amount of coins, or if this was an OCD type thing, the Ziploc bags, any of that?
It's just normal stuff you've seen in a car. There's nothing unusual there. Reflective things because he jogged. We all know he was a runner and a hiker. So nothing there. There's gloves. I mean, that's common in a vehicle that's in cold climate.
A
I think
shovel,
they did something like that.
a shovel, goggles.
Maps, documents, seatbelt, boot. Yeah, it's all normal shit.
You carry a shovel and goggles in your car?
No, I carry explosives and firearms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
I mean, you never know when you get to a tough spot. I'm sure
Okay.
that the YouTube censors will now be listening to this stream. At least I got you some viewers.
Yeah, at least.
At least. Didn't I buy them things from you?
No, you did not.
Maybe not.
No, you did not.
You going to jail, motherfucker.
Here it is right here. Here it is right here. It says Gonsalves and Mogan were at a local bar, the Corner Club at 202 North Main Street in Moscow. Gonsalves and Mogan can be seen on the video footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. November 12th and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Gonsalves and Mogan can be seen on video at a local food vendor called the Grub Truck at 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow. The Grub Truck live stream video through their food truck, we know, on Twitch, which is available public viewing on their website. This video was captured by law enforcement. A private party, Eric Grower, reported that he provided a ride to Gonsalves and Mogan at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow in front of the grub truck to the King Road residence.
Right.
So you knew that.
Yes. Excuse me.
How long have you known that?
Oh my God, for a long time.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've I've seen the JLR stream on it,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like most people, and I'm not trying to be one of those people like, oh, I just found a boom, nothing like that. I'm just saying this for myself that, you know what, this name has been thrown around so many different directions. It's been misspelled 100 times. It's been talked about that one of them lived in Pullman, one of them lived in Moscow. But the reason that I found this significant also is because in one of those streams that we were talking about, I mentioned that the wife of that individual was scared to death of Koberger. And I think, I believe, yeah, I think that at one point somebody asked me, has that been, is there a receipt on that, or is that just hearsay, or this, that, and the other? And I remembered reading about it and I found it. So I wanted to show exactly where I found it at. And that's
Yeah.
not the one. It's the other one. Whenever people ask you, hey, did you make that up? Is that hearsay? So
Third party. So the stories from um the wife were never stated by the wife. If the wife had a fear of Koberger, it was never her saying it. To my recollection,
right here it says,
it may
I
have
was
came from
surprised, but okay, on long crime, it says, I was surprised, but exceptionally glad that some form of resolution is forming, the private driver said. I feel exceptionally bad for those parents in our community. He was somewhat stunned to learn that Koberger, who maintains he did not commit the murders, lived near him in Pullman, Washington. He lived 1,200 feet from my front door. I spent 6 weeks trying to convince my wife there was not a threat and I was wrong, the driver said, adding that his wife still fears walking their dog despite Koberger's arrest. The driver spends much of his days shuttling people around town, so after the killings, he kept an eye out for the white Honda Elantra. He eventually spotted it at Koberger's apartment building sometime after December 7th. I thought it was too new, he said of the car, since Moscow police had asked the public for information about 2011 to 2013 Elantra. However, he wrote down the car's Washington state license plate number and submitted a list of 13 or 14 Hyundai Elantras he had spotted sometime around December 10th through Moscow PD tip line. Okay, so there it is. I mean, I didn't make that up. You know what I mean?
right.
And I know that a lot of people, whenever when you share some of this information, people are quick to diffuse or debunk that because they say, no, I've heard that and it's just a rumor. But there it is right there. He lived 1,200 feet from this guy. His
Right.
wife was scared of him. The other guy, the Martinez guy that I showed on the video in one of the lives that I had before, his wife was scared of Koberger. Does this mean he's a murderer? No, it doesn't. But what I'm trying to say is, intuition has a lot to do with people's perception of somebody. So could this guy, I mean, I'm going to speculate right here. I'm going to ask you point blank. Could this guy have been the informant?
Nah, he's too
You know,
easily placed out there in the PCA. His name is there. No. Not only that, what's he going to inform on? If you read the sequence of events, okay? They're the
okay.
sequence of events of a guy that drives and makes deliveries. And he said he turned in numerous Hyundai Elantras and license plates. So, no, he's not a protected informant.
Okay.
He's told us what he did, and there's nothing significant. He was being a good citizen based on what he's telling us. And, I'd like to hear it from the wife. I don't know how he didn't say that they interacted with the guy, met the guy, hung with the guy, did anything with the guy, but his wife was afraid of the guy. Just a weird statement. I think that's outside of the norm, to be very honest with you. I don't know where that comes from or why he thinks it was even relevant to share. It almost seems contrived to be, but it is what it is.
Said yet the guy was out hiking and walked into Koberger while he was out hiking as well, Mr. Martinez.
Well, I don't know. But it is what it is. It doesn't really move the ball anywhere when it comes to place in Coburg or anywhere not,
Right.
So
I wasn't trying to move the ball today. I was merely trying to.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just summing up what it is this guy did. I'm not saying you were doing anything. I'm just saying
here's the other article.
Don't take it personally, boy. I'll sick my dog on you, but I gotta get a dog.
Come on with it.
And get a dog. I gotta train a dog, and then I gotta find you. And boy, it's an awful lot of work. I'm too lazy for that. You're safe.
Well, this is another article from the Daily Mail. I don't know how respectable their coverage is. They do post a lot. They do post a lot of stuff about it in the past. They were also talking about, they called him the taxi driver, but he was a ride share driver.
Right.
It said, in this one, has recounted his recollections of the night and claimed the community is living in fear with little faith in MPD. Speaking on condition of anonymity, he said, I've known Kaylee and Maddie and Dana too. They would occasionally get rides home, and there was nothing out of the ordinary about that night. Which I'm not trying to say that there was something extraordinary going on between the grub truck and the home. I was basically trying to clear up what I've heard for myself as far as that name being butchered a million times and people speculating that the rideshare driver was the DoorDash driver. There's a lot of misinformation there. I just basically
we don't know
who
the DoorDash driver is.
Of course not.
Right?
We don't.
So, and it was funny how quickly DoorDash got their ass out of the fucking connection to this case. That corporation was able to squash their involvement completely. Their driver, it's never even talked about, brought up in the news after it was first said. And it was like they were cleared and they get a free pass. They get a pass of protection. There's no mention of that delivery, but that delivery is crucial to the timeline because they made it crucial. Not me, not you, not the fucking people that dream up theories. They did. Around 4:00, that delivery was made.
And this part right here, he said, because I remember this sticking out to me because I thought this is a weird statement. But once again, I'm not saying it stuck out to me because I think that he's involved in the crime. It just stuck out to me that this is a statement that, do most people make this statement if they're recollecting memory of something? I don't know. He said, I just sort of pulled in front of their driveway. I didn't pull right into the parking lot. I usually try not to do that because that's an easy way to get robbed. I try to stay in position where I can go either direction so I can get away if I have to. It's never happened, but you hear about these things. But on that night, he saw and felt no threat. In fact, he said, I didn't watch them go all the way in. There were the two of them. It's a relatively safe place. It's not something I would usually sit and watch.
Yeah. It doesn't sound unusual to me in his description. People try to turn that into, what do you mean he didn't sit and watch? What kind of people, how people are. They're assholish, ignorant, and they gotta make mountains out of nothing. So yeah, I think unless something returns to connect him to that crime, I think him and the DoorDash driver we don't know anything about. So in my head, I think it would be important if we knew more about that situation, not to go after the guy, but to just see, his story, what he says happened, what he saw, what he didn't see,
So it also spoke on the time frames in the PCA, and it's quite long, but it breaks down the time frames that says in one portion of that, it said there was no reliable pings that showed between 2 and 4 p.m. of that number, the
Right.
8469 number, whatever Koberger's last four
Right.
digits were. It
Mm-hmm.
showed that there was no pings. And that's when the officer started talking about it's been his expertise to know that people turn their phones off, this, that, and the other. That just, I mean, I know that's been discussed also a million times, but I was thinking about that today. I was thinking, well, because I'm putting the new information that's been put out there, that he wasn't going that direction. He was going south toward the WWW park. You know what I mean? So
Right.
how did they get that information? That's how my mind is going with all this. I'm taking the information that's been given recently and going back with these other things and trying to put those things together as, how does that match up? And of course, this is going to be in court. So it's not something that, is hearsay or anything like that. It's a legal document that he filled out. So he can't basically say, well, I made a mistake. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure he's going to have to answer to that. How did you, if he was, because people are almost dead in the water that this guy that the defense has is not as experienced and is not going to show as much data information to show him not being at the scene of the crime as
Mm-hmm.
they think he is. So, the PCA says one thing. If this guy comes out and kind of contradicts what it says, I'm kind of wondering how he's going to be able to contradict the cast report. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think Cy isn't so much going to contradict them, but give clarity from the phone. And I think what you're going to see is that there's nothing in what he'll present that'll put the house on King Queen Road. That's what I'm convinced that that's really all he has to show. Now you can then argue, well, we got video of it, but their argument against the video is, and my argument's the same thing, in that show me how that's Koberger's car. Don't just tell me it's Koberger drives a white Elantra. Look, we got a white Elantra. Okay. Well, I mean, what's that? So I got a blue Chevy, and a blue Chevy was used in a bank robbery. What distinguishes mine from his? What makes this Elantra Koberger's Elantra? And if you can't do that,
Well,
then
don't you believe that it's the simple fact of not having a front license plate? If all these other ones have,
I don't know.
I mean, honestly, think about this a little bit. I'm not trying to say one way or the other, okay? But if these other Elantras that you've looked into have front license plates,
You would have to physically go visit every Elantra. Remember the green one that came out of the parking lot during the demolition?
yeah, and
You
supposedly that
couldn't
one
see a
didn't
front
have
license
license
plate on that
plating.
one, could you?
Yeah.
That license plate was bent and pushed back. You couldn't see a front plate on that green one. You see a lot of vehicles in that area, whether they're an Elantra or not. It's not an uncommon thing to not have a front license plate. Okay,
Well, I
so that
understand that, but if you don't have one here, you get pulled over and you get a ticket. I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but
I
you
don't have
have
I
to
have a law that you need a front license plate, but I haven't had a front license plate on most of my Corvettes, all of them in fact, and never got pulled over for it.
Okay.
So yeah, listen, I'm saying that gets you a little closer. Show me that's Koberger's car, okay? Without something that's unique to it has to be unique to him. A dent, a bumper sticker, a sticker in the windshield, in the window, ripped window tint, dent in the door, something. Give me something that your video can identify Brian Koberger's car unquestionably, because saying it
Well, he
didn't
was
appear to have
pulled over.
listen, it says it appears not to have had a front license plate is not the
Right.
same as not having a front license plate. You
Well,
follow
the
me?
last time he was pulled over, when they did get his phone number,
Right.
did they not? Lost my train of thought.
No, it's fun.
I lost my train of thought.
I just think
Oh,
that And when you think about it, okay, you need something that can identify you, not something similar to you. We don't incarcerate people because of similarities. We incarcerate them because of facts.
Of course, of course. And that's why I was going with those documents rather than, because I've talked a lot about this as well. And most of the stuff that I've said, I've never shown proof of how I got that information. Even though I've probably heard it from other people, I wanted to show today that there are documents out there that can give you the information without you sounding like you're speculating. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I completely. I have no. I see that completely. I think in some of these instances where these policemen write uh these stupid fucking things like this, that people need to step back and ask themselves, is that enough to put my kid in jail? Because if it's not, then you need to move the hell on and wait for it to show up. Otherwise, if it never shows up, then it exonerates the man. In all fairness.
So let me ask you, Sarge. Put yourself in a juror's position, all right?
All right.
You hear all the information that they have, okay, up to this point, because we're not sure what motions are going to be able to take certain things out and what things are not going to be presented. But at this point, what they have, do you believe that if you were the juror and you were listening to all this PCA stuff and you were listening to all the what you have at the moment, not what you could have, not what people have painted, what you have at the moment, would the fact that if they said that the reason that if they said, his Honda Elantra didn't have a front license plate, because that seems to be something that is talked about a lot. So if it wasn't important, I wouldn't believe that they would talk about it so much.
Of course
Do
they
you?
would. Sure. It says the
So
vehicle appeared not to have a front license plate. So let's be clear. What came first? The
it
understanding in
appeared
the
to not.
video that did they put a bolo out for a Honda Elantra without a front plate? No. Did they look at the
They didn't
video and then did they look at the video and then realize Brian Koberger's car didn't have a front plate? And then decide these cars look like they don't have a front plate in these videos. So all of that matters.
Well, the guy with 35 years of experience, how did he get it wrong?
Well, he got it. He couldn't have got it wrong. They showed him pictures from two different locations. I guarantee it.
Two
They
different
showed him Linda
angles.
Lane pictures. The car you're seeing in the parking lot on Linda Lane is an 11 to a 13 Elantra. Spot on. The car they showed him
You're
in
talking
front of
about the
smoking.
one. You're talking about the one that showed up at 4:05 or
I
4:04.
don't care what time it shows. It does the U-turn in the parking lot. The one that everybody's all
The
googly
first
gaga
car,
over.
the first car, or the second car?
The first car. The car
Okay.
that parks in the parking lot and reverses and drives away. That is an 11
Okay,
to 13.
that's
Yeah.
the one I'm asking. That's the one I'm
Then
asking.
the second photograph that they showed him is connected to that smoke shop. And that gave them the 14 to 16. You want to, I think you're going to find it's going to be you're going to see what the police did. And you're going to just shake your head and ask yourself, how are these people even investigators? That's what I think part of the outcome is going to be.
I probably am, because I'm not convinced one way or the other. That's why I haven't publicly came out and said I believe he's innocent. I believe he's guilty, because
Yeah.
I don't have enough in my brain to tell myself, hey, it's one way or the other. I don't think like that. I don't think it's all of this or all of that. It's because that's just not how my thinking is.
I don't accept the thinking of guilt or innocence at all. I don't think that's what we're able to do from the internet, and even from the position of a jury. What I'm able to determine fairly is this piece of information consistent with this person committing that crime. And if it isn't, that doesn't tell me he didn't commit the crime. It told me the cops swung and missed.
Well, based on the law, is there reasonable doubt that he didn't do this?
I would say there's everything they wrote in the PCA provides reasonable doubt.
Okay.
A car with a likeness to suspect vehicle one is not his car. I don't think
For a
people
reasonable
realize
doubt.
that you really need that. You really need to show that these things are Koberger, not just assume and then hope the DNA is going to close the deal. I know that's how they present cases. I do know that's what these prosecutors and government agents are doing, and they're not supposed to do that. You're an American.
Well,
Unless the
Jojo, I get
circumstantial
that.
evidence is overwhelming.
I get that, Jojo. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I understand that. They've, there's a lot of things that have been stated, but
Right.
at this day, today, March 1st, 2024, we don't know he was at a park. We don't.
Well, we
I
don't know
mean,
that, but
unless you were
we do
riding
have his
shotgun,
lawyer
I mean,
stating that. Wait, we do have his lawyer telling us that. That's something that they never said before. They never said to us that he was driving south of Moscow. Here's the thing that I get a kick out of is when you read the police's theory, and I get mad at this. It's so fucking empty, their theory. It's so based on my experience, based on my review. Listen, how come Cy could come forward and say the kid was in wanna lick my balls park, right? Look how that's 42 miles away, bro. Why didn't they tell us that part of those last 12 visits included a trip to that park? Why did they keep that shit secret? Now they come out and say that those 12 trips were consistent with the trips he took on the 13th. So that means he went to Walla Lick My Balls Park. Fair enough? I get mad at people. I get angry because the cops present you with the most bullshit information that doesn't say anything except what they trick you into thinking because you framed it in the context of the crime. Take the crime out of it. Look at this man's actions and tell me where in this description it puts him in the house killing 4 individuals horrifically with a K-bar knife. If you can't do that, you should just move the fuck on and go knit like I did, a sweater with no arms. Okay. And I'm
well,
not yelling at you.
last night I
venting.
showed how it
I'm
would
just
be
venting.
difficult to cut somebody up really quick. Just never.
But why didn't the police tell us he was in that park? And they're 12. And when they say he was stalking them in the PCA, when they say that they were concerned that that's what someone does, that's stalking or setting up a crime, why didn't they tell us those 12, 13 trips all included Wawa Park? Why not? What kind of
Maybe they
criminal
didn't
piece
know.
of shit are these police?
Maybe they didn't even get to that part of the investigation.
How come the fucking
I'm not.
defense is telling you I'm not attacking you. I'm just in general. I'm just spewing. So
I
if someone
understand that. I understand that. I'm just saying that some investigator found that out, and they were either trying to suppress it, get rid of it, because it could have been exculpatory at the time.
I said from the
But
beginning, the
for some,
PCA is the exculpatory evidence for Brian Koberger. Sadly, the evidence the police are alleging to place him at that crime are going to actually be the evidence that shows he didn't do it. And not didn't do it. Let me just say this. I don't know if Brian Koberger did it, and I don't think we're ever going to know if he did or didn't do it. The point is that I think that police work was so shoddy, and Americans need to be sensitive to that.
you're right on that. You're exactly right, and I don't disagree with you at all, because you can't put him in that house. I mean, unless they have video of him walking in and walking out, or an angle that shows the light shining into the vehicle, and that camera captures his face that has been scientifically enhanced, where they can, without a reasonable doubt, prove that that's him or it isn't.
Right.
You can't put him in that house.
So show
Based
me
on
one.
based on eyewitness testimony, he doesn't even match according to what the eyewitness testimony says.
Listen, and I that's kind of why I always get off the train with that guy Jeff in your chat room. Look, the light bulb camera is going to reveal that it's 11 to 13 Hyundai Elantra. That's what it's going to reveal at best. But let me just say this: how many people have heard of a guy robbing a bank and getting nailed because his tail light was out? You've heard stupid stories like that. People get caught
Yeah.
from big crimes by simple mistakes or simple things they're unaware. Where and unless and I'll tell you, I think she's smarter than I am. Okay. And there's no way she's gonna let that jury go back there with the idea that them pictures from them videos identify Brian. She's gonna demand these police give the jury exactly how you know that car is Mr. Kohlberger's. Forget the pings. Show me in your video an identifying feature from that picture that you can match up to his car. Because if you can't, then you can't say that that's Brian Kohlberger. You could say it all you want, but you have no supporting evidence to make the claim it was Brian.
Let me give you another. Let me give you another part of the PCA that I read today that I haven't read in a while. It was talking about Officer Nunez's body cam of the crime scene. Okay, and after they say all that, they talk about finding the knife sheath under Maddie on her right side.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that on that body cam that knife sheath was seen by Officer Nunez as he walked into the room? I mean, if it wasn't there when he walked in, and then it's there when Payne walks in, there's a discrepancy there.
Right. As a matter
Is there
of fact,
not?
one of the motions written by the defense used the word placed. That's not part of the official government story, but it is the argument that the defense has made. Not an argument, but they like stuck it to you a little bit by putting that word placed. The knife sheath was placed on the right side.
Well, place means that you went in there and you placed.
I know what it means. There's no evidence to support that argument. The defense used that word. There's nothing we have to support that accusation. Right. And again, if
get on camera, damn it. That way I can see your face.
And if is not good enough for me, if it's just, here's what if is. If is the 2-letter word that most morons grab a hold of and run with. And I mean that for every single human being that uses the word if they must show that car is Kohlberger's. They must show that without any reasonable doubt. Fair enough?
They planted it, in my opinion. Clad in black. Who said that? I heard what you said about the F. And I mean, that's just the question-based word. Maybe they mean the killer had to place the knife sheath down because Kaylee entered the room unexpectedly.
Right, and then Kaylee jumped up on the bed and put herself between the wall in the corner of the wall so that she could then be murdered there. Here's the thing: if you can't base your assumptions on the facts available, even if you don't agree with the assumption, for example, if they showed that was Kohlberger's car, right? If they had unequivocal evidence and they could show that to us, I would accept that. But I need to see that evidence. I just don't assume that he killed them on their word. And that's what this country is supposed to be founded upon. It's not my word versus your word. It's
supportive evidence. There's supposed to be supportive evidence to the charges that you're accusing this man of.
And so what did they do with here's what they did. And this should tell us a lot about what we have in this nation as a problem. We have a problem with thinking. When somebody suggests to you that Kohlberger stalked those victims on 12 previous trips and leaves out that car on 12 previous trips was 42 miles away from that house, you got a problem that needs to be resolved. And you as the viewer should see and catch and attack that problem and say, wait a minute, I've been thinking he stalked them all this time. Suddenly now, Cy Ray is saying that all those trips included trips down south of Pullman, south of Moscow. And then you get up a map and you measure that distance at 42 miles. And now ask yourself, how disingenuous is it for the cops to make the statement they made?
You know, another thing that PCA that I was reading earlier stated, it stated that after the 13th, after they said it pinged that morning, which they later retracted and said, no, there was no way the car could have been there. After the 13th, there was no more pings or nothing of his phone being in that area. So what did he do? Destroy his phone? What did he do? Keep it turned off the whole time? Get a different phone number?
What
What
did
did
he
he
do?
do?
It appears like this is what he did. In all fairness, he left his apartment and went south of fucking Pullman. Okay. They have also said to us that on one of those previous 12 trips, his phone also stopped reporting to the network. Okay. They don't know why. They don't know why it did it this time. So we now have 13 trips. All that they admit are in the same general area. All they admit are the same general time, right? And 2 of the trips both have issues with the phone dropping off the network. They told the public and gave the public the view that these were trips to pre-plan a massive multiple homicide. And now the defense comes forward and they show you that their expert can show that he wasn't anywhere near the house. And
Well,
now
let me ask you this. I stated that for a reason, because you're an analytical thinker like I am. I stated that for a reason, okay? If you have been spotted supposedly around the house for 12 times, okay? And then all of a sudden, the night of the murder happens, and then there's no more spotting of your phone at all around that house or around Moscow at all. How do you explain that? Because from November 13th, from November 13th to when did he leave to go back to Pennsylvania? The 15th of December?
Yeah.
So a month almost, there was nothing. That's what the PCA said. There was no more pings in that area.
But they didn't pull a warrant for times beyond the murder. Remember the dates of the murder? And they went back to from June to November 13th.
Well, of course, but that's what that PCA said that I was reading, that long ass one. It stated that when they were talking about his phone pings, it stated from the 13th, and then it talked about the next morning and how that was a mistake ping because they knew that his phone was not there. After that, there was no more activity to show his phone number
anywhere
in Moscow. Anywhere. I'll email you the document.
Yeah, you're gonna have to email.
I'll email you the document. Yeah. I'll email you the document. I'll email both of them to you. That way you can read them.
See,
because I'm not making shit up. I promise. I mean, I'm not making it up. I promise.
Look, it's got nothing to do with being right or wrong. It's got to be doing with being fair with the data that you're given.
Of course.
When you're given this data, and the defense contradicts it, and then the prosecution comes in and confirms the defense's contradiction, right? When you see the case of the allegations start to fall apart, he didn't stalk, he didn't travel around their house, he doesn't have their DNA anywhere, there is no electronic connection to Kohlberger and the victims, which was part of their stalking. People seem to forget that's part of the storyline of stalking. When all of that stuff resolves, here's the question you have to ask yourself. Why aren't you accepting that and giving it the same credit you're given? The cop that says, it's my experience, criminals turn off their phone. The cop didn't say, I witnessed Kohlberger turn off his phone. He didn't say that.
Right. He said, in my experience.
Why do you give the cop so much credit, but you don't give the defense any credit for their statements that they're making in legal documents? Right? If you're unable to make that transition, like I am not unable, if there's evidence that shows Kohlberger was in that house and committed that crime, I want the kid put in front of a firing squad with a quickness.
Of course.
But you can't use the information you're showing me, and then the defense is putting forward information that you, in fact, are confirming and expect me to want to shoot this guy. No, I don't want to be part of that.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying the PCA that I just showed up on the screen, the 2 version that I showed up on the screen, were the ones that they were given in Pennsylvania, and they put them on the internet as 31-page document. So all of that information, you've seen it in bits and pieces, but I never saw it in a continuum like that. You know, there was 19 pages that we were told was in the original PCA, the one from Idaho. But there was all this other information. I have never seen that his phone quit pinging after the 13th. No more activity at all. None. So if his phone was at his apartment because he was there, he was getting a haircut, he was going to the doctor, he was doing this, he was doing that. And supposedly, if 20 miles is the distance, how come there's not any more activity? He would have pinged in Moscow somewhere.
I don't know. I've never seen a document that said Koberger's phone went off network and did not report, even up until the time we arrested him. I haven't seen that. And matter of fact, they do report that phone as being somewhere else out of the area. So it was on the day of the murder. The next morning,
The next morning, they did say.
I don't understand your point. I don't understand your point. Are you saying they're saying that his phone never reported the network after the crime? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what it says
written?
In this PCA that I read.
Yeah, I think that's because your PCA doesn't go all the way beyond the 13th. That's what I think what you're seeing is they didn't have him under surveillance or a warrant to survey his phone beyond the date of the crime and 5 or 6 months beforehand. I don't think the surveillance on his phone went from December 30th to June. I think the surveillance went from June to November 13 and stopped. That's what's in the information they gave us. I don't know that there was more tracking of him from 13 forward that they're claiming showed that his phone wasn't working. I never heard that or seen that in any document. That's completely new.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, if you got it, it's nice to know it.
Yeah, I have these documents right here. So, I mean, that just stuck out to me.
Well, that would stick out to me too. That seems fishy, but they never said he changed phones or got a different phone carrier plan, or they told us when he got the phone, where it was turned on from, and it was a Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think I may have found it.
Dude, I'm gonna grab a soda real quick. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Grab your sweater while you're at it. It says further investigation, including a review of Latah County Sheriff Deputy Corporal Duke's body camera reports, showed that on August 21st, 2022, a detained at a traffic stop, and this is where he got his phone number. So they conducted electronic database queries and learned that the 8458 phone
I don't
was
want
the
you
number.
to do that all over again. I'm grabbing a soda. Give me one.
Okay.
No, never mind. Go ahead. I'll stay here. Start what you said that thing's reading. I was.
No, it says upon review of the body cam and reported a stop, Koberger was the sole occupant, was driving a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plate LFZ 8649. And then he went and got new tags.
Yep, which was normal.
And this is where this is where he talks about the Koberger was still driving the Elantra.
Mm-hmm.
Because his vehicle was captured on December 13th by a license plate reader. It's queried. Let's say it says a query of the 8458 phone and these returns did not show the 8458 phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Right.
And then it says, based on my training, he continued to talk about can they leave their phone on airplane mode or turn it off. I'm looking.
Oh, you're not going to find it.
These records indicated 8458 phone is subscribed to Brian Koberger, blah, 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 blah. These records also included historical cell site location for the 8458 phone. I consulted with the FBI.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think what you're saying is going to be found.
I'll find it and I'll.
Yeah, search.
I
I
can't
don't
do
think
this. I can't do this and be live at the same time unless you're talking to the
you're the
audience.
one that made it. You're the one that
Yeah,
brought
they're
the
gonna
topic
be
up.
bored.
Listen, bro, you
What?
brought the topic up, not me. I'm just
Phone
saying.
stops recording, which is
Show the
consistent
facts,
with
then tell us the story. No, sure.
Always show the facts.
Yeah.
I can't do it at the same time.
And I'm not even sure that if that's the case, if they said that, what relevance that has to the crime, unless they're trying to suggest the guy was hiding out or something, but he wasn't. They clearly caught him on cameras. He was driving around. He ended up hooking up with his dad and driving across the country. I mean, the guy wasn't doing anything somebody hiding from 4 homicides would do. He was, right, in all fairness, he was doing quite the opposite, don't you think? And he knew they were looking for a white Elantra. He may have known it was only 11 to 13, but he
Here
had
it
to
is right here. Look.
You know,
it says investigators found that the 8458 phone did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14, 2022, but investigators do not believe that the 8458 phone was in Moscow on that date. That's what we talked about. The 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date.
okay.
Right here. I don't know what that means or if it means anything at all, but I know that I saw it. I mean, there it is, right here. So his 8458 phone is not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date. So what is that? I mean, how is that possible?
I don't know. So they're saying from the 14th until the day this document was written.
Yes.
We do know that he left town. Let me just say he was doing every 2 weeks. If you went back and looked at his 12 previous trips, about every 2 weeks, right? And his dad, he was finishing his semester and doing his thing in Washington. And then his dad came up and then they drove off. And so he did not connect. We know for a fact that from the 15th or 13th forward, there was no way for him to connect because he left the area. That we know.
Well, both of us can understand English, and that's exactly what this says right here. 8458 phone has not connected to any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date, which was November 14th.
We can account for
November
more than
14th, 2022.
We can account from December 13 forward is because he actually left to go home. Right? What day did he leave and went and visited relatives and went somewhere with his dad?
December 15th, the day that Kopaka was.
Was that the day he was pulled over? Because that was after he left. He'd already been left by then.
He probably left on the 13th.
On the 13th, right?
Yeah,
so the 13
so a month
days
later,
of December.
So from the 14th to the 13th of December, 29 days, or 30 days, something like that almost.
And it was finals. They were closing for the Thanksgiving, and they were closing for Christmas, right? For the end of the semester.
My point, Sarge, is this: if they got you pinging in Moscow from 20 miles away 12 times supposedly, or that you were in the area,
right?
This document just stated after the 14th, when they realized that car was not in Moscow because either they were surveying the car, or or whatever. After that, there was no more cell phone usage off any towers that provide service to Moscow since that date.
Mhm.
That's what that says. That's not what 12 gate says.
Oh, so what do you find to be significant about that?
I'm not. I'm just saying that it's it's interesting to me. It's not speculative. It's not conspiracy. It's just interesting to me that they have all this data on an individual up until this date, and after that date, they don't have you showing up anywhere in Moscow after that.
I think they
What
have
was
him
the
showing up in Moscow. Don't they got pictures of him going to the store after that date, or were those pictures and videos they showed us of him previous to the
no?
ride?
Those are south. Those are south of Those are south of Pullman.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it may mean he was hiding from there, right? It may mean he had no reason to go there after that particular night. He'd stopped doing his running. I don't know. She said something about him in the alibi about his work and his teachers and his schooling, um, and that he would occasionally go on these drives for whatever reason. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't want to explain it. Who knows why they didn't catch him on that thing.
I'm not. I mean, I just wanted to show that to you because it stuck out to me.
Yeah,
It
it
stuck
does
out to
stick
me.
out. It
It
does.
might not mean anything, but when
Right?
something sticks out to you and
No,
it's
that's
written
fair
on a
enough.
legal document, you want to discuss it. You get what I'm saying?
Right,
Or
but
at least
this
I
it
do.
is. It's a statement of the facts as they have them. So he didn't go back through Moscow. Okay. Well, there must have been 2 weeks at least in between because they're saying he was there 12 times, right? So there were always gaps between when he was there anyway. So this gap may not be any more significant than the last 12 gaps, right? They're not saying he went through Pullman every day for the time he was there. They're saying he went approximately every 2 weeks.
It just sounds. I mean, based on what I read, and we've all broken down wording before. So
Sure.
based on
Right.
my interpretation of wording and how the English language flows, based on how I read that, and I could be wrong, that makes it sound like there was no more cell information transmitted to Moscow after that date. So is that trying to say, okay, well, he was stalking them? Because if he wasn't, then he would still have cellular data being recovered from Moscow if he was just over here, getting food or whatever. I mean, I don't know the relevance of putting that there. I'm just saying that it's just odd that you're putting this man 12 times in a location, supposedly stalking these people. And then after this date, after they're murdered, all of a sudden, nothing else.
Hmm. Right.
Whether that's relevant, whether that's not. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. And, and just for conversational
Well,
value.
to me,
I
it's
appreciate you talking with me about it.
very consistent with his previous 12 trips. His whole time there, he was only in Moscow, and it isn't every 2 weeks. It was once, twice, and then there was a break, and then there were several that were closer. So his trips weren't like planned out every 2 weeks. They were random, but they average out to every 2 weeks if you were to plot the 12 times versus the 6 months that they reviewed. Okay. But they weren't the
Okay.
time intervals between each trip that he hit the towers was not exactly 2 weeks. It was greater and smaller throughout those 12 trips. And this just seems consistent with that. Fair enough.
So if they're saying that he went to WWW Park and his phone would ping to Moscow on those trips as well, you're telling me that he didn't go to that park after the murders?
He may not have because he didn't go to that park consistently every 2 weeks. He went to that park a total of roughly 12 times in 6 months. The grouping of
Okay.
which is not every 14. In other words, he didn't do it on a schedule. He did it when he got the urge or he had the time. You see? And so this lack of pinging after it is still consistent with the 12 pings prior. And then we know on December 13th, he left the area on his dad to go on a trip, right? So there'd be no reason for him to be in Moscow from the 13th forward. So we can account for December 13 forward. Makes sense why he wouldn't report to a Moscow tower when he's crossing the country. Prior to the 13th, back to the crime, that lapse in connecting to Moscow can also be consistent with him just not going on that trip as he had done those 12 previous times.
That's what I'm saying, Jeff. But let's look at this. Let's look at this information as well, or this way of thinking. I'm just throwing out a lot of things out there. Sorry, that's all I'm doing. Let's say that he realized that these people were murdered right on the 13th, and maybe he got wind somewhere that they were looking for certain type of people. Maybe he heard through the grapevine. And so that's what made him go cold turkey, made him just stop.
There's no fact.
Well, if they're looking,
that's just another.
Well, I understand.
It's a what if.
I understand that.
But let me just say, there is facts to support the argument that the previous 12 trips weren't consistently spaced. They were random as far as some could be back to back, some could be as far as 3 or 4 weeks apart. Okay. That can be shown to be true. So let me finish.
Okay.
So that means this 3 to 4 week gap is consistent with previous behavior. Previous behavior we know was not part of stalking or part of this crime. Okay. So the unusualness of this isn't unusual because we can account for it based on the police's own evidence.
So if I was stalking you,
I wish you
this
would.
So if I was stalking you, and then I know that you've been murdered, or I've heard that you've been murdered, I'm going to quit going around that location, especially if I've been stopped more than once around your house.
Well, that was all beforehand, right? And
but all of a sudden, the heat is on.
Well, didn't Cracker Claw say that there was no stalking?
Of course he did.
Okay.
But they've said so many things since the beginning. They've said so many things.
That's kind of the thing that I've been trying to explain so folks understand. If they don't have evidence that can place you somewhere, and even when they do, when I've told the story that I robbed the house, I stole the guns, and they didn't indict me, even though my fingerprints were on the hinges of the door, because I was the maintenance man that was paid to paint the hallway. My fingerprints were not in an unusual place. Now, if they were there and I had no explanation for my presence to be there, then those fingerprints would have been used to incarcerate me. So it's always comes down to context.
They would have been able to convict you had you not had any business there,
They
right?
never even took me to trial. They never even charged me with a crime with those fingerprints because the fingerprints were on door hinges and a hallway with all of the doors in that hallway, including the robbed apartment, being everything I interact with. My fingerprints were all over that area. And so therefore, now I'm telling you, 30-something years later, I did rob the apartment. But they never even indicted me or charged me or arrested me because those fingerprints were not conclusive evidence that I committed a crime. They simply placed me there. They did not place me.
So when you robbed the place, did you have any inkling to say, well, you know what, even if they find my stuff here, I work, here?
One of the motivators was not only that I'd been there, I'd been in that apartment and I knew what was in there, obviously, or how else could I have gone in there, right? You want to kind of know your target if you can, right? And so, yeah, I kind of understood that anything they found there was going to be explainable. My presence was required there. I was paid to paint the hallway and the doors and the door trim and the floors and the floor trimming. So in other words, I knew my presence there was completely verifiable, and it was verifiable for honest reasons, where I then committed a dishonest act knowing that. Yeah. Yeah, I was a scumbag. I mean, if we want to get right to the point, yeah. Fucking scumbag, dirtbag, should be kicked in the dick.
I'm pretty
Bad guy.
sure
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we all have
But
a past like that. But
yeah, but let me just say though, do you see,
change.
even with direct evidence, it's not always a slam dunk. And where's the direct evidence against Koberger? I'm waiting. Where's the direct evidence without an if? Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
I told you I told you my stance on it. There's not enough for me to say one way or the other. I mean,
No, there's got to be a way for you to say that. Listen, that there's reasonable doubt, or there isn't.
People call me a guilter because I present different sides of it, and I guess I present the side that he's guilty, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm just putting things out there that could be a reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? If I heard as a juror that his phone stopped pinging from any tower in Moscow for a month, that would be enough for me to think, okay, why? They might not tell you why. They might not tell you why. But that could be enough in your brain to get you going, okay, well, maybe he didn't come over here as often as they said he did. Or
I
maybe,
think there was a break. Listen, there was a break from June until August. It was from August forward that those other 10 trips accumulated. So the first few trips, there was a delay between them more than 2 weeks. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks, and that's consistent with what this particular statement. In other words, we can show you that that's not unusual behavior. That actually happened before the crime. That same thing where he didn't report to a Moscow tower.
So these trips, how long total were these trips spread out? From August to what?
From August until the crime. No, from June into the crime. So 6 months.
Okay, 6 months. So probably you average that out as maybe 1.75 every month or so.
But that's not how the trips laid out when you track them down.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
I'm just saying they're not as frequent as people are making them out to be.
There are 12 trips and a varying difference of time between them. They're not 12
Somewhere in the early morning, somewhere in the evening.
No, they were all around similar times. But what I'm saying is you might go tonight, but not, and then you might go Sunday morning. Yeah, right. And then not do it again for 2 weeks, and then do it again, and then a week later do it again. What I'm saying is that the time intervals between the trips are not like scheduled every 2 weeks. There's variable amounts of time between the trips, shorter and longer, which when you read the statement that, the guy didn't connect to the tower and, basically till he left town, that's not inconsistent with the previous 12.
So the new information that we have, and I know you're about to start your show. So
not for another hour, but anyway, yeah.
Okay. So the information the information that we have of him going to the park. Going back to what you said originally, how come that wasn't in the PCA? How come the cop didn't disclose that?
I don't know.
As evidence. How come that wasn't, I'm not asking you, I'm just kind of blanket, just stating it, I'm being very very whatever the word is.
Why did they let the public believe this guy stalked him?
Yeah.
Why did they let the public believe that he was chasing them on the internet? Why did
that was more formidable than to say, hey, this guy liked to go hiking and stargazing.
And that's to me where when you see this is when I think we the people need to hold them to a higher standard. I'd like to see, I don't mind circumstantial evidence. Look, there's some things that happen, right? You're at home, your kid's at home, you go to bed and you wake up and what was once 6 cookies is now 1, and you didn't eat them, okay? Right? There's circumstantial evidence. A, the cookies are missing, and B, there was your kid in the house. Who ate the cookies? I get it. You can make circumstantial cases, right? But in a case like this where your circumstances aren't even definitive. It's not like you're saying we have proof Mr. Kohlberger was in front of this particular location at this particular time on this video. They're not telling us that. They're telling us that they have a like vehicle to suspect vehicle 1. It has a likeness. And so that's where I think people need to realize that's not evidence of anything.
Well, when it's all said and done, the prosecution has harder work to do than the defense. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove anything. Because the prosecution's the one that's charging them. So, they're the one that have to prove without a reasonable doubt that this is their man.
Right.
And for whatever reason they believe, at this point in time, they believe that he is the guy. Based on whatever.
I don't think they believe that at all. I think there's evidence to show that Bill knows that he knows there's something wrong with this case. I think there's evidence to show they knew there was something wrong with the case where they convicted the chiropractor of murder. People know that this isn't accurate. People know that this information is not conclusive information. And they know that they presented a theory. And that theory is what this kid's been arrested.
Was it? Many people, many creators at the very beginning, because I've been following this as long as I've known that you've been on here, which is, a while, if not almost at the beginning. A lot of individuals have been saying for a very long time, he's innocent, he was framed, he was this, he was that. And then there's the other side that say, there's no way, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. The unfortunate of all this is there's been a lot of time wasted if he's not the one. There hasn't been any release that says, hey, we've looked into other people. We've found other new evidence.
Well, the investigation stopped. Obviously, they ripped the house down. What's there to investigate?
Right. Well, I'm sure there's other cameras to go looking for. There's still.
Can I just say this? This is why I started that news network. Your Answers News Network. Let me just say. See, the problem we have is too many people don't want to think. They want to instigate, and they want to argue. And there's too many people on here that use this as a source of their own personal sick entertainment. This is a horrific homicide. Yeah. The circumstances are mind-boggling. It's disgusting. And I'm going to say to you, I don't even want to know who did it. Now, I want who did it to be held to account. But my life wouldn't be any richer by knowing who it was. You follow me?
Mine either.
But any crime in this country, like the Gigolo case, 10 years of police corruption. Look how many young women lost their lives to a serial killer because the cops couldn't do their job. The people on the YouTube, you morons, are no more effective and intelligent as the morons in law enforcement. They're your own kin. And then you sit here and you're going to defend this group of people that are accusing a guy of a multiple homicide, and every single accusation they've so far succumbed to admitting is false. They themselves have. With the stalking, with the 12 trips, right? They excluded the fact the kid was going to Huawei Park and hanging out. They've made all of these allegations against Kohlberger. And so far, they themselves have verified that they're untrue. Not Ann, not me. Cracker Claus has, right? And people can't get off this gravy train of attacking and trying to make arguments with this stuff because they're too effed up in the head. They're part of the problem. The information thus far shows that there is no reasonable reason to believe Mr. Kohlberger did this crime. That's the facts that we have up to this point. You don't have to like them, but that's what they're saying. And move on to a new case. Leave this one alone. Come back to it when new information is released, which I got a tip. I don't know if you know, but there are new documents out there. Wrong gauge.
Yeah.
Right. And you have.
I mean, I don't get into reading the document. There's some creators that break them down better than I can understand them, and I just listen to what they say. You know
No,
what I
you're
mean?
very intelligent. You should review them like you did tonight. You're bringing up good points and things that people may have missed.
Yeah.
Um, you missed and you clarified for yourself with the identity of the drop off dude, right? Yeah, no, I think and cutting instead of going over the whole PCA, you should have started with that
Yeah.
because I think you know that most of us already knew what was arrested in the PCA. And I'm just because I think that that exciting title that you have would have been nice if no, really, I'm being fair, I'm being honest with you. It would have been nice if you'd hit that right in the head when you jumped out here and then
Yeah.
carried forward.
We're still learning, bro. Still learning.
Um I just find it's incredible. It's like with the Sebastian Rogers case. Everything has got to be Chris did it. And it's sad that so many people need to create a tragedy within a tragedy. Because the events we're observing they're not meant for entertainment. I am not entertained by a missing child or 4 murders. Nothing about this
You're
is entertaining to me.
you're correct on that. I mean, I think people honestly do not believe that this could happen to them. If you've ever, any of us could be arrested and charged with something, and to clear your name is harder to do than to be
It's worse
convicted.
today.
Yeah, you
It's
know what I
worse
mean? Like,
today.
and
Yeah,
if they have the ability, if the government get the ability to be able to arrest and convict based on limited evidence, it's a bad thing for us,
not
man.
just that. Let's just look at the truth of the matter on Koberger is that it isn't the government coming out screaming he did it. It's the social media person. And even when that social media person is shown evidence that says, wait a minute, how could there be this was a getaway car that he drove away in haste with, which means he probably didn't take the time to use tweezers to clean his goddamn uniform, right? He drove away in haste. That doesn't leave time for a man to clean a crime scene, clean himself, rid himself of all evidence, get in the car, and drive away in haste. That makes no sense. When you're presented with this fact set, this data set, you're supposed to just look at it and try to understand. How can that situation come to the conclusion that not a single trace of any victim is anywhere connected to Koberger in any way, shape, or form? Right? How does that
Yeah.
become? How can he be the killer? And you're going to rely on microscopic DNA to argue he is, but they couldn't even find microscopic particles of any of the victims connected to anywhere he worked, lived, played, or drove. What I'm saying is, a
I mean,
fair
the
person
case.
would weigh both sides of that. If you're capable of finding that to say he was there, you sure should have been capable of finding that in his apartment, in his car, in his shower, in his bathroom, in his home. How is it you can't find any of theirs associated with the guy that did 4 horrific murders by knife? What are the odds of that? Wouldn't you want to know that before you arrested the guy? Wouldn't you wanted to know that those cell phone pings? Wouldn't you have wanted a complete analysis, asking him and even holding him for 24 hours and downloading his phone? You see stupid TV shows run a series of operations, right? That are within the bounds of protecting your your constitutional and civil rights. None of that was done here. I personally think that all the information Anne has shown the public, if that was available to the police through a proper investigation, there wouldn't have been a warrant for Mr. Kohlberger. He'd still be a suspect,
Of course.
but he wouldn't be in the jackpot he's in. They put the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse.
Well, I've heard that be stated before as well. They arrested him, then they built the case around it.
I think
Like
they had a
they got enough probable cause for the judge to sign off,
Mhm.
and then they started building the case from there. It's like we
Right, and
got
I
enough.
think they assumed the car in that video was his without actually doing thorough investigations into it. In other words, they had these images, they were confirmed to be Elantra's, that was good enough for them. Fair enough?
Of course, they didn't even have. They gave you a stock photo for what car to look for. They didn't even trust the public enough to give them the video footage of the car that they had in question.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I
he
just
still shows up in here for some reason, but I did block him on YouTube. The woulda, coulda, shoulda, if maybe what that they got something. It's a secret. Even in his last filing where he's arguing about the alibi, you look at how sternly Mr. Cracker Claus points out the PCA and how sternly his case is tied to that PCA and the timeline in that case. Bill essentially tied that PCA around his neck like a noose in that filing about the alibi. So for people to say, well, there's stuff they have that you don't know about. Well, apparently, when you read that motion, everything he has is pretty much in the PCA when you read that motion. Fair enough? So this super secret, unbeknownst evidence that keeps getting thrown out there is a reason to consider this kid, or to say this kid's guilty, you just don't know yet, is, to me, that's a level of ignorance that I can't even imagine. Show and then tell.
Well, even in that PCA I was reading earlier, it stated that his phone was not even from 3 to 5. There was no cellular activity in the area that matched that phone number.
Right.
I mean,
so how do you place him at the house? Who cares how accurate your cellular data is if you can't place him at the house between 3 and 5?
Well, I mean,
right.
You know,
let me say I could show exactly where 12 gate was 23 hours Tuesday, but I can't place him anywhere between 3 and 5 a.m. on Tuesday. Right. So how do I now? I can't. My cell pings aren't of any use to me because I can't locate you. All I've established that you and the phone were with each other 22 hours that day. That's all I've established. Where were you?
I never put my phone. I never put my phone on airplane mode or do not disturb or any of that.
Yeah,
so I'm saying that, you know, how could they not have any, from 3 to 5, how was his phone off during that time? Like, I don't believe that speculating on a PCA is evidence. You can say as much as you want as far as your experience with previous crime, but this is a different crime. This isn't the same crime that you handled 2 weeks ago where the guy turned off his phone or he turned it on airplane mode and drove and committed a crime, then turned it back on after the fact, 28 minutes later.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how they got in there. I don't understand how they were able to leave such wording in such a legal document that they're dealing with somebody's freedom.
Well, the document does, though, tell you that Koberger, they can't tell you where Koberger is. That does say that, does it not? From 3 to 5?
It says there's no activity.
Okay. All right. So
from 3 to 5. Once he left his house at 2:47, 13 minutes.
My 13 minutes. Does the PCA identify a location between 3 and 5 using the phone? No.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay.
All right. So Mr.
It says he leaves his house, and the next time that phone comes on is 2:40 or 4:48 in the morning, as he's heading south, outside by Blaine.
Okay.
Idaho.
So the police are unable to give a location of Brian Koberger from his cell phone. Fair enough? During the time of the crime.
Right, because they're basing it on him turning it off.
So if Brian Koberger said he was anywhere, as long as it's reasonable, then how do you can't disprove the guy?
I don't know.
What I'm saying is listen, their PCA gives him the alibi that he wasn't there because they have nothing to place him there. Whatever video images they're having, apparently they didn't even know what year car they were looking for. They came up with 2 different years, right? Wait, let me finish. So even their video evidence is questionable. What I'm saying to you is that everything in that PCA that alleges this man did it is exactly the evidence that you could use to show he didn't do it. You were unable to identify this vehicle. How is it we're to believe that when you're telling me it was Mr. Kohlberger's vehicle, why should the jury believe you? You, sir, couldn't identify it accurately from the videos you were given the first time. What identifying feature on these videos makes this Kohlberger's car? And I'm telling you, the policeman isn't going to have an answer. That is their evidence being used against them.
An FBI agent.
Well, it doesn't matter what he is. But you see, what I'm telling you is you have to have answers to these questions. If his phone was off for 2 hours, where was he, Officer 12 Gauge?
He was on a road somewhere, heading somewhere.
So that leads you to believe that he killed somebody. That's your, in other words, that's all you need to accuse this man of 4 homicides. Is that fair, Mr. 12 Gauge? What if that was your son?
Well, based on the video evidence, this car supposedly went around the house 4 times.
Supposedly, sir. Supposedly, I'm asking you.
There's eyewitness testimony that is
to what?
Circumstantial that this individual matches the perpetrator.
Well, your eyebrows are as bushy as his, Officer 12 Gauge. How do I know it wasn't you in that home?
I have a solid alibi.
You have an alibi. And does that include any times where you were alone?
I'm alone right now.
There you have it. So so see what I'm saying is in a trial, this PCA is going to get stuck up their ass. It'll bury him. They're asking for an alibi where he can provide a receipt or a witness, and he doesn't have that kind of an alibi.
Well, I think that we're, as people on the internet, we're looking so hardcore on this trial as being a battle. I believe and think that it's not going to be as much of a battle as people think it is. They have to prove reasonable doubt, and I believe there's enough there.
I know you do.
And when I say reasonable doubt, I'm not saying that he's guilty or innocent. I'm saying they're able to prove that the prosecution did not provide enough evidence in a fashion that told the story of how it happened. Look at the Casey Anthony case. With all the evidence that they presented in that case, the general consensus was she killed her daughter, but she walked. Because that attorney was able to present reasonable doubt, meaning that this couldn't have been my client because of this. This couldn't have been my client because of that. This couldn't have been my client because of this. I don't care what you say, what evidence you have in that PCA. This couldn't have been my client because of this. And the same holds on the other side. This could be your client because of this. This could be your client because of that. If you don't have a viable option against what I'm presenting you that makes the jury believe or not believe you, then you're going to give them reasonable doubt. And it just takes one.
You know, here's the thing is people seem to think when they look at these cases, they need to find a perpetrator that's guilty. And I got a news flash for you, but you're not doing that on your phone and computer. Okay.
Right.
Cops don't, that's not how you investigate a crime. So let's be clear. Your first thing is not to look for guilt or innocence. Your first thing is to examine the evidence being laid against the individual and estimate whether it's solid or not. And as you accept it as solid, as it starts to get taken down by the defense, you have to accept that. Okay? You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. Now, after it was all taken apart by the defense, if the prosecution presents evidence that shows that none of that mattered anyway, this is why we know he's there. Okay. But so far, all we have in the Kohlberger case is a story from the cops that doesn't seem to line up with Kohlberger's information that's been given. He didn't stalk them. Their DNA isn't connected to him. He's not connected to them electronically. His 12 trips were not to plan a crime. His 12 trips were consistent. He went to this park. These things are all been confirmed. And there's reasonable doubt to suggest he didn't do this, right?
Let me ask you a question, Sarge, and this is a real logical question, okay? Do you think people are fixated on the fact of what he was doing for a possible career and the educational value versus if he was just a homeless drug addict, would they be on the side that he was guilty? The fact that he was going to school and had all that supposed knowledge, there's no way that he could have done that because he was in school and nobody would throw away their lives who had gone through school and done all this and
Can I
that.
give you?
But
Can I give you an example? If I told you or let's say a story came out that 12 Gauge is a survivor from the Titanic. Okay.
okay,
Do I immediately make you a villain because you're a man that survived when all them women and children drowned? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
people do it all the time.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. Is it also possible that you're not a villain at all? That you actually went down with the ship and got dragged into a lifeboat and brought to shore with the
It could happen.
wait. What I'm saying is the fact that you were on the Titanic as a man and survived, you get online with that information, and these twits are going to impugn you as a guy that let women and children die to get a boat to slot on the boat for himself. You know that's what the internet's going to do to you. When the real story is you hung on to that ship to the last second and woke up in a lifeboat. You don't even know how you got there, right? But ain't no one going to believe you. You know why? Because there's too many people like Jeff H. out there, okay, that don't have the capacity to understand information and use it in a way of thinking, not believing, okay? And the bottom line is that this Titanic story is every bit as real as the Donna Ives case, the Kansas City 3, the Sebastian case, the Koberger case. You, sir, are a villain because you survived that tragedy. You see? And we know that the story is untrue, that you follow me? But you'll never be seen that way because there's too many people like that in the face of even common sense is ignored because they believe what they think. They've taken data and they believe in it. Just like a guy believes in God, and you could argue till your head falls off. He's never not going to stop believing. That's what's happened to the viewer on YouTube. They've become believers in something. Go find church, people. Go find a God to believe in, and then come back and review 12 Gauge surviving the Titanic sinking and realize 12 Gauge didn't deny women and children a space on a boat. He was fortunately pulled from the waters. See, that story wouldn't get heard, 12 Gauge, on the internet.
Well, let's get back to that though. Would you say it would be more believable in people's minds? I don't care what people believe, but their thinking would say, of course, if he was a homeless drug addict, he'd have more culpability. I'm not saying capability, I'm saying culpability to be able to do that versus somebody who's going to college, got his life all in order, this, that, and the other. It's almost like individuals do not believe that good people do bad things. In that theory, that's what, if you're clean cut, you present an image that you're trying to be better than per se somebody who's a prostitute who's lost everything, this, that, and the other, then all of a sudden you're less culpable of doing something bad. Look at all these cops and lawyers and doctors and dentists and teachers and all these people that get away or get caught doing bad things against the law. And the first thing people say is, oh my God, I never would have thought it. I never would have suspected they would have had the capability to do this. Everyone has the capability. And I hope that people, I'm not trying to tell you how to believe, I'm not trying to tell you how to think, but I hope that you finally get to the point where you see somebody who's struggling in life, that they aren't automatically a criminal. A store gets broken into and there's three black guys on one side of the store, two white guys on the other that are dressed in suits. Mexican guy down the block and an Asian guy around the back. Who do you think they're going to single out first?
The black guys.
Why?
And that's why I've said all along, listen.
Why? Tell me why before you go on.
They're going to be singled out because we've been conditioned and because there may even be factual data to show that blacks on a percentage commit more crimes. But here's the thing. These are just three individual black men that may in fact be brain surgeons for all the hell I know, right? And so The fact what we've lost our way in this country is separating our common sense from data. We believe in the data, so we believe that it's more opt that a black guy would have done this, and so we go and arrest the black guys. That's what black see. You wouldn't believe that I support Black Lives Matter. I voted for Trump, okay? But let me tell you, I support their concept. They're completely right. The endemic corruption is within the system, and good people are being taught to do things that they're. That's the way the job is done, and they really don't have an option to do it any other way. And so they're being trained to come to these conclusions, not even realizing how racist that is, how horrible that is. Just because the guy is a different color than you, he's automatically a criminal. That's a major malfunction of the brain. Fair enough?
Yes, and it's sad that, you know, like in the Sebastian case, he has two fathers, right? The biological and the
Right.
stepdad. Since the stepdad comes off as more abrasive and more alpha than the biological, then we're going to view the biological dad not having anything to do with it because he doesn't come off abrasive. He comes off like a heartbroken dad. The mother, she's stoic, never has expression on her face, nothing of this. So they must be guilty because they are the hardcore couple versus this nice, kind, I'm just looking for my son type individual. Um, it's done every day. You pick a side based on perception of what this individual means to you as far as your moral values and beliefs. Hopefully, one day we get beyond that way of thinking because if we never do, there's going to be a lot of lynch mobs
We're already
harming
having
a
them.
lot of innocent people. Look at
This
Hitler.
help me
I
out
mean,
here.
look at Hitler. Did he look like a tyrant? Not until he grew the little mustache, right?
No. Also people misunderstand the Civil War. You know why the Civil War started in America? It had absolutely nothing to do with blacks. Do you know what? Do you know why it started?
No.
That those states didn't want centralized government. That's the reason the war started. Just be clear. The federal government, they didn't want it. All states wanted to be individual states, like individual countries. They didn't want to come together under where we are today. Just realize that's what started that war. The federalization of the states. And the southern states wanted no part of it. Okay? And so now people historically talk about the Civil War as we freed slavery. Well, yeah, well, that kind of did happen, but that wasn't the intent. Mainly, it was because if you proclaim them free, the southern industries that used slavery to produce the arms that were fighting the war would no longer exist. That's why slavery didn't get freedom because we had this high and almighty moment of clarity that all men are created equal. Although that was written in a document, understand we've never lived anywhere near the promises of that document because we as a people are too ignorant. We're still too ignorant to understand that what those people wrote in that document were for the future. They had nothing to do with the day they were wrote. Zero. They were promises that we were supposed to fulfill ourselves as a people. And we so fail on that. And in this modern age with this internet, we certainly could bring that to fruition. We could make that Constitution real. If we as a group of people stop the shit you're seeing going on with all of these criminal cases and all of this political nonsense, where it turns into this, you got people believing one side or another, and nobody can meet in the middle. Right? It becomes tenuous. I mean, some people will just keep needling you, and you just can't talk to them. You don't want anything to do with them. That's why I blocked that kid today. I don't want to be needled with the same needling things that you keep saying for the last year and a half. I have no interest in. I can't. How do you talk with someone that does that? First of all, you can't. But that's what happens. You end up with two different camps, and these two different camps ignore what's in the middle. And what's in the middle is you're a different color than me. Have I ever treated you any different? No. I treat you like everyone else. If I'm going to be a jerk to anybody, it's everybody, right? If I'm going to, right? And you treat me the same way. My point is, we have the capacity as people to fix this using this internet, and instead we're engaged in this bullshit that we have to suffer around. Who's right? Who's wrong? What does this mean? What does that mean? It's sad.
I mean, eventually there may be a trial, there might not be. If there isn't, there's going to be civil war among the masses on YouTube. I mean, it's going to be the worst that we've probably ever seen it, because people are not going to stop talking about it, because the
Yeah.
people that believe he's guilty, they're going to come up with, oh, that was a conspiracy, um, to find him guilty no matter what. They didn't let him go prove himself in court and this and that and the other. And the other side's going to have the other argument. That's why I'm saying I don't have one way or the other. That's why what I present on here is hopefully just right down the middle. I don't have a dog in the fight. I feel bad for the victim. Those are the reasons. I mean, people say that and then they act a total different way. Unlike what people might believe, I do love humanity. I believe that people should be treated with dignity and respect.
Right.
And that's unfortunate that it doesn't happen like that. People that are murdered, they are looked upon as the topic of the week. And I know I'm probably guilty of it right now. I'm doing a live on dead kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You know what's funny is when I tell my story to people, and they have some understanding of my background, and then how for the last 30 years I've had an extraordinarily fulfilling life, good, bad, and everything. It's just been an amazing life. They like applaud that. Yet when you take the context of Koberger, which it has similarities to my past, right? I see him take the crime away from him and look at him. Forget the IDAHO4 and just review what you know about Mr. Koberger. And there's nothing in that knowledge that portrays a mass murderer. Nothing. Would you agree with that? Well, he stole his sister's phone to get high. I've done worse than that.
I mean,
He turned his life around. He got to school, right? He's
I
studying
don't
the
know.
most
I
difficult
haven't
part.
heard. I mean, other than the incel stuff and all that stuff, that people have placed on him, I don't know where they even got that stuff. It just seemed like out of nowhere he became an incel. He was stalking them. He was doing this, that, and the other. It's like people had to have a narrative in order to understand the gruesomeness of what being murdered really means, and they still don't understand it. I was watching that knife video last night. I was watching that knife video that I presented last night, and I have never seen anybody get stabbed, okay? And when that guy stabbed that guy the first time, where he stabbed him like 5 times that fast, I was like, good God, I can't imagine how somebody would feel getting stabbed that many times, not even realizing until probably the fifth time that they were even being stabbed. You just thought somebody was punching you, and then you realize that you're bleeding out. How horrific must that feel?
Yeah, that's insane, bro. It's
You
totally
know?
insane.
I've never seen anybody get stabbed. Have you?
No,
If you have
no,
you?
I was stabbed at, but believe it or not, you know the tang that you move your zipper up and down with on a leather jacket?
Yeah.
That brass? The tip of that blade hit that brass and the knife fucking ricocheted
Wow.
right off my chest. Yeah, it was crazy. So I haven't witnessed being stabbed, but I was almost stabbed.
I mean, just watching those videos last night that I presented, I was like in awe, because we have this TV imaginary, movie imaginary picture
Yeah.
in our heads of how people get stabbed, or how they're able to slowly just see the knife coming at them. It's not like that at all based on those videos. And I'm sure it's a lot more gruesome in real life, seeing somebody actually get stabbed more than once. I mean, supposedly Kaylee got stabbed 54 times. I mean, that's a lot of stabbing really fast.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But we're glad that you lived. I mean, because like they say, most people don't. It only takes one slash or stab, and it could be the end.
It's a vital organ and it could be all over with you. It's just a matter of time.
Did you see where that guy stabbed that piece of meat, cut right through it?
Mm-mm.
I put a video on there too last night about this guy demonstrating how one slash and how deep it can cut. He sliced through a piece of meat that was dangling, and man, that cut was deep and it was precise.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the damage we could do to each other, I think we do ourselves worse damage by I think that I'm convinced we've all been taught how not to think. We've been taught to use our feelings and our ability to believe when reviewing information. And I think that over the long haul, that needs to be somehow, that point needs to be made, and people need to be shown that's not what you're supposed to do with data. Data is supposed to be provable and verifiable, and more importantly, repeatable. You know, science isn't out to disprove God. If you really look at the scientific processes and the things that they're doing with colliders and telescopes, okay, they're not looking to disprove it. They're looking to understand how creation came to be. And they even named one of the particles a God particle. So science is a quest for understanding and knowledge. And when you look at a crime or a missing child, the facts that pertain immediately to that incident are what matters. And it just seems somehow we would rather have the drama of going after one or all of the parents. I don't know how as a group we allow creators to walk down that path. Right? It's very sad, man. And it's so simple to do a simple thing, which is you look at the info and if all you can do for Sebastian is pay for a few flyers, even if it's 2, and then do that and go see if you can go help find another missing kid. Because maybe your relative who lives in the same area that kid went missing, and they could just keep their eye out for him, right? There's so much good we can do is what I'm pointing out. I mean, even though we all have some differences and we battle, even the worst of us out here with the drama, if they just take a little step to the left and try, or to the right, what a difference we could make in this world. All right, I'm going to grab me some more Wawa.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get off here, man. I'm going to grab me some food and, just kind of
I got to
wind
go
down.
up on another half hour. I got to go on a stream. So,
well, thanks for hopping up here, Sarge, and thank you guys for your participation in the chat. As we all say, we agree to disagree. Not one comment is above the other or below the other. I hope you guys continue to come back, look at some of my other videos, and kind of get some information based on what we talk about, because I hope to present things that can be shown as research, not just something that comes from my head. And I was trying to do that tonight. I hope you got that concept. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Stay on here for a couple of minutes after you shut down.
All right. Well, you have a good show tonight, Sarge. All right.
Yeah, you send me that email. I want to ask you a couple of questions before we close up. After the show's over, though.
All right, Maestro, cue the music.